this is going. So it's not a bathroom, but this would be defined as reasonable accommodations. You're talking about, there's already a plug there. You don't even have to take that out of the wall, really.
Mm-hmm.
You could just leave that there.
Yeah.
Or it would look nicer if you did, and sheetrock patches or whatever, but a $2,000, $2,500 table removes a barrier in the building. So even though it's not a restroom, it has a sink, has a trash can,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a private door that's accessible to anybody.
And you can, when you turn the knob, it says occupied.
Yeah.
So,
And no one has to ask for a key to get in here.
right.
It's equal access.
Well, I have another question for you.
Is there a symbol, like we have the nursing symbol?
Yeah.
There is what symbol, can you send me that?
The Oklahoma Children's Hospital has given me permission to share their image with others who wanna, if you either wanna design your own image. That's basically the little restroom people. And then one restroom person is just, you can see that he's up against a table. So like a changing table that comes up
Okay. And that would be sufficient rather than putting a sign that says universal changing station or
and see, that's not defined either. It's kind of like, what does the Oklahoma City Convention Center want this room to be called? Is it the family care companion room?
Mhm.
Is it a
I think we would just add a
family
sign.
companion room?
I think we would just add something that says, we have the nursing symbol, I think we would add the other symbol.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need more signs, cause we're getting ready to redo some of the signs in here.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's an option
That's great.
besides the symbols to say,
Yeah. The Oklahoma Children's Hospital, they went in on all their marquees and added the universal changing table. So if you go up to if you're just going up to the elevator, it's on the elevator, it's inside the things on the elevator, it's on the walls places. And also a big thing too is in this building, I don't know how many of these there are, but it's real important to put above all of these, in the event you need a larger table,
that's a good idea.
please see the second floor family companion room, or whatever
Okay.
you all want. It would be nice if the city would be consecutive. So at the Civic Center, what do they call that room? But does it also provide a nursing mother room access? So this is a unique room, because it's not a family restroom,
Mm-hmm.
and it serves more of a purpose than just being a nursing mother's room. So maybe family companion room would,
Mm-hmm.
and then is there another place like on that end of the building, maybe on a different floor, that you could have another one, because that's a long walk for someone pushing a chair. Have they thought of, you don't have to have more than one, it's sufficient, but as far as the code that I presented to the city council, you're looking at the amount of feet, the distance between this one and where the person is. So if they're way on the other end of the building, on the 4th floor, the amount of effort it takes for a caregiver to push an individual in a wheelchair here, is there an elevator on that end that would take them to the 1st floor, 4th floor, or somewhere else? Is there another room similar to this?
There are 2 other nursing rooms, however, they're
Yeah.
smaller.
And go look at them?
Yeah, we can look at them.
Would they even consider doing 2? One's great.
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
we just kind of put the money in the budget for one,
Yes.
and we picked this one because this one's larger.
Do you mind if this keeps going?
No, that's fine.
Great. I'm gonna upload this to my channel. I came out about, I guess it was about 9 months ago, this time of year. This is the coolest building.
Thank you.
When it first when it was first finished, I'd come out here and just the massive, it's so big. And to be under it at night walking by,
That's how it's.
I come down here late at night and walk around. I'll do a 6-mile loop.
Oh,
I
you
haven't done it in a
do?
while because I haven't felt good, but yeah, I plan on.
And when those trees get more mature,
Yes. I love
see
getting
that.
out on
Going
this
down.
balcony. Being out on that balcony at night when the night market's going.
bunch of us came down here from employees. We didn't have an event that day, but when we had when they had the 4th of July Philharmonic concert and the fireworks. So several of us sat out there on the balcony and watched.
Going up.
I love it. Going up. She's so happy. Okay. Hi.
Oh, right down there.
Thank you.
See, this one's
Yeah.
smaller. And the one on the 3rd level is about this size too.
But the big, well, if you move that chair, because you wouldn't need that, or fill in that wall, if that chair were over here, you could put one, if they would be willing to do two. If they see the need to have two, they know that that's an option.
Yeah,
Start with one.
we'll start with one, and
Yep.
it's taken us this long to get this far.
Yes.
You know.
Yep. Like in big buildings like the Paycom Center, just to walk from one end to the other, especially, if that ever gets a major renovation.
The other thing about having it on the 2nd floor, that nursing room is not used as much. This one, because this is where we do a lot of the public events, like Mistletoe Market and a lot of trade shows. So that one's occupied a lot.
Then that would be the better option, actually, than that one up there. If we can make that one work, because if this one has more traffic and more people, more events here, because then you're asking someone like me.
Well, but my problem with that is that it's occupied so much that somebody would have to stand out here and wait. Because I have been in here when we've had shows where a lot of people are coming in with strollers, and that room is occupied. You would have to wait a long time. Whereas that one upstairs, that's not used as much, so it'd be much easier. There's the elevators right there, and I know it's a little bit further to get to, and then the one on the 3rd level, when we have ballroom events, it's used quite a bit too, and it's about the same size.
Yep, I see that. A nursing mother, I could take 20 minutes sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're pumping longer. Yeah.
And I would just hate for them to have to wait. That one, like I said, up there, is just not used as much because it's close to meeting room. But I think, what we'll do eventually is, see that kiosk over there? We've been working to get those operational, and once we do, it'll have wayfinding, so it'll have that on there. And
your website, go to your accessibility page. Any accommodation, whether it's nursing mothers' rooms, if someone would get hurt, is there a clinic here, or I don't know?
We have first aid room.
What does your first aid room look like? You have a key to it?
Yeah.
But you have to have a key to get in there, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's...
And we typically have, first aid.
See?
So we have strollers in there. And this was our first thought too, but when we have
locked
events,
door.
we need to have this operational because we have a lot of people in the building. It's just, they have to keep their.
Yeah, we got wheelchairs, see? Anything that's in this room that could be accessible to a visitor, put it on your accessibility page. The Science Museum Oklahoma has done a great job. In fact, they have little QR codes that you can just walk up to while you're checking in. Say, are you a nursing mother? Scan this QR code. It gives you all the information that could benefit a nursing mother in that building. It's just really cool. Have access to any information you need without having to find a staff member or a key to something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I said, when we have events going on, we usually staff it when we have events that are over like 1,000 or 1,500 people.
Okay.
Especially when we have events down here that are all public events. You just make sure, because you just never know. Like Mistletoe Market last weekend, a lady, she was an older lady, and I think she just got overwhelmed with the crowds, and she had, I think it was actually kind of a panic attack,
Uh-huh.
but she was afraid that she was having a heart attack.
Well, it feels like one.
Yeah. So immediately our EMTs went in and they sat down in a sitting area and spent time with her, and thank God everything was good. But
Going up.
it's just important to have her here.
Well, we've been, isolated from everybody. Now we're getting out. I've noticed that just in my own life, getting out, buzzing around a little bit more, being around people, hugging on people again.
I know.
And then you go into a big crowd like that. I went to the night market just a couple, I guess the last time we had a night market. I've never seen so many people. There was so.
Going up.
I pushed the wrong button.
I'm gonna come back out here on that balcony. I gotta come.
Oh, it's
Check it out.
4.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting around more people and.
4th floor.
Yeah, I had dinner with a friend of mine, your friend,
Going
who I've known
down.
for over 30 years, for her birthday. And I gave her a hug, and we were sitting close, and
Yours was that one. And
You've even got water in here. That's so thoughtful. So this one has room too. Yep. I came here to pick up my tickets or my bib for the memorial last year. I'm gonna run it again this year, half marathon. And then I come here for fuel up for John Rex. So I feel like I at least visit the building twice a year.
after the building was finished too. I don't know if you knew that.
I do. I remember there's this one and another one, or is this the only one?
No, there's 2.
There's 2, yep. Those were, so they were just expecting people with wheelchairs to have to go way out of the way.
Well, they were expecting, for instance, how it is at conferences.
Uh-huh.
If somebody was in a breakout session there, and their next breakout session was in the room at that end, kind of, which is a mirror side of the building, they would have to go up that elevator on that side, go all the way across here to the other elevator, down into that room. And,
So does that fall on the architects, or how is something like that missed?
well, when you talk about reasonable accommodations, when I first brought it up with them, they said, well, it met the reasonable accommodations. And I said, but
not everybody else has to get on an elevator or
so
take the stairs.
Remember, when we're busy with conferences, there are going to be people without wheelchairs using both of the elevators to go from floor to floor because their exhibits are downstairs, and they're using the elevators and the escalators, and the elevators are busy, and you can only fit 2 in the in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client that has 20 people.
And see, look, she could have chosen these stairs, but most people will choose a ramp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My knees are old and rickety. They make all like Billy Goat's chewing on cans.
I do that all the time. And
but I would rather walk down a ramp than stairs.
I have a client though. He has this conference next summer, and he said we typically have about 20 attendees that are in wheelchairs. And we went through the process, and the city did the right thing and got with the architect and designed these. And we had a seating area there, and we had another seating area down
And
at
it looks nice.
It looks like it was meant to be there.
Yeah.
Like it was originally
I'm
planned.
glad that there was space there to do that. Because then what would we have done if there wasn't?
And they said, they said, well, we've got the ramps in the back of the house, but they're just not, one of the ramps is right behind the kitchen. So we're using those ramps to wheel food around. It's like, are you kidding? You expect somebody in a wheelchair to use those ramps when we're moving food around?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it all worked out.
Yep. I've studied up. I'm not an architect or anything by any means, but I like to read a lot and studying up on just universal design and its implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So steps aren't universal design. They look nice.
Yeah.
What a nice day. It's going to be a little bit chilly, but it's still green, isn't it?
It's still green.
Thank
for
you.
Now. I have to go home and pour all my plants in.
Isn't it beautiful?
Can't beat the view. I get to see it every day.
So, if you'll try to imagine, so I advocated for the adult-sized changing table over on the south end of the park.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first adult-sized changing table to go in a park, I believe, in the state. We got a changing bench out at Ruby Grant. But anyway, could you imagine having an event, having my son out here? Let's just say the Flaming Lips are playing out here, and Max has to use the restroom. If this building isn't open, or if the Paycom Center isn't open, because I know they've made accommodations, I don't even know if I'd have access to that building. Look at all these bathrooms. So there's one over there at Spark. There's one right here on the stage. There's another bathroom pavilion right over here by the children's park. There's one over here, you can't see it, but by the skate rink. I'd have to take Max in his wheelchair. Let's just imagine it's today and how cold it is. Go all the way across that sky bridge over to this sports pavilion to help him with his toileting needs.
Did they not put, I thought they put some kind of a temporary one.
I'm trying to get them to put a bench right over there in the children's pavilion, because you got a lot of children that play there, and they either need to put one, I don't think there's room to put one over at the stage unless they put it in the green room. But that doesn't have equal access all the time. Those doors are locked. So really the only place that they can put one in at, and those bathrooms over there by the perch, those aren't big enough either. Those are men and women's. But there's a family restroom over here by the playground, right over there on the south end, that has enough room to put a cement bench in. That's similar to what Ruby Grant Park did.
That should be easy to do.
Let's see, about $800. Yeah. And that would, I mean, can you imagine? It's real hard for people to imagine how far I would have to push Max. And in his wheelchair, it's a child, and I'm 6'1", so his handle it's about half an inch too short. So I catch myself bending over just a little. But it's not fun pushing him from the stage all the way. We're gonna figure it out. The city's already scissor tail.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's something that, until you brought it to our attention through
that's
Tom
what
Anderson.
everyone says. Yeah, he's amazing. I never got to meet him in person.
Oh,
But
I
just
miss him.
just our chit chats on the phone. He's so cool. He
Oh.
told me about this story. Have you heard the story about the guy that was blowing up toilets at Will Rogers Park back in the 80s?
No, I'm surprised you didn't tell me that story.
He's
He
the
told
one,
me a lot.
whenever I was talking to him about Ruby Grant Park and those cement benches,
Mhm.
he says if it's got cement walls, it needs a cement bench, because people are brutal to public parks. Like I was talking to Scissortail Park guy over here, Lance Schwimmiking. He's got a cool office view too. All have cool office views. But he told me about this guy that was like just determined to blow up the toilets at this city park. And so they'd go in and someone would take a stick of dynamite or whatever. You can't even get back when you could get dynamite like that accessible. Anyway, I guess they were blowing up toilets. He goes, one day, after we'd fixed that toilet a couple times, that whole pavilion was blown up. And as I was telling that story, he goes, yeah, just last night someone came in and broke all the mirrors in the bathroom. People are brutal to public parks.
Yeah.
So-
And there's kids, like we had somebody one night, some kids that had gotten out of, I guess they'd run away from some juvenile detention center, and they came in and they started at the parking lot down there, and they smashed some of the windows of the parking attendant's little booth, and then they came across our building and threw rocks at our front building. They didn't completely crack it all the way, but it was enough, because it's thick glass, but it was enough to, shatter part of it. And then they went over to Omni and did some damage over there.
Did they catch him?
Yeah, they caught them.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they did catch them. And they were prosecuted.
So could you imagine one of these tables in a city park? It'd be torn up. They'd just tear it up.
Yeah, they would. But a cement one sounds, yeah.
I'll have to send you a picture of the one at Ruby Grant Park. But I'm 6'1", so when I lay down, and I've got wide hips, but I fit perfectly on it with room to spare on. So easily someone's 6'3". And then it's indestructible. It could help a mother with all of her bags. I could put my bag on a restaurant floor.
Yeah.
It's gross. It helps. It eliminates baby changing tables, and you just sit down and change them on a bench.
Well, and you can, when my son was little, it's hard to remember back to that one. But I had a little thing because I didn't want to put him on a changing table directly, so I had a little pad that I just carried with me in my diaper bag.
Yeah.
That
We
I
all
would
do
lay
that
out.
too.
Yeah. So you could get one that's larger.
Yeah. Well, my son has larger ones. Yeah. And then we get crafty and sew them together and make them bigger. But yeah.
How old is your son?
He's 6. He goes to school over here, kindergarten at John Weeks. He's the first kid at that school to have wheels. So I just asked the city yesterday to come look at the curb cuts, because there's no curb cuts along the south end or the west end of the building, and so I had to drop him off at the accessible spot. Mm-hmm. Well, Scholastic Books, FedEx, all these places, they just think, oh, well, this is the only parking spot I'm going to pull in. And the only choice I have is that accessible spot, or I have to have him cross the streets. Well, it was raining. And Scholastic Books parked their truck right in the accessible spot. And I unloaded Max in the middle of Sheridan, further out than what the bike lane is, at 7:45 in the morning, downtown traffic. So it's just bringing a barrier to the attention, and it's not going to take them much to remove some.
They should know better than to park in an accessible parking space. I mean, that's just...
They're just popping in real quick.
You can get a ticket for that.
And it's someone's federal civil right. Mm-hmm. It's his federal civil right to have accessible parking. And so another issue out here is what I had. This is a totally different accessibility issue, but the accessible parking sign in front of John Rex Charter was at 10 feet tall, and we were getting habitual misuse. Well, the reason is when you're driving in your car, that your head roof, that's why they have to be between 5.5 feet and 7 feet or whatever, so it's visible to drivers. Mm-hmm. All these accessible parking things around here at 10 feet. You know what they told me? We don't want people bumping their heads on them. No. That sounds like someone who was installing them just didn't want to cut them to size. So they're all out of code. And it's brand new. And I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have researched the MUTCO, which is the building codes for traffic and stuff. I wouldn't have done that had I realized that the reason why people were misusing the one in John Rex so habitually is because they didn't even see it. They couldn't see that it was accessible once approaching it.
That's why we need people like you to point those
Yeah,
things
mamas, passionate mamas, and just want their baby to participate.
I remember when my son was little, and I had him at a daycare that was downtown, which was just a few blocks from my office in Fort Worth at the time. And it was across the street from City Hall. So when they had something happen at City Hall, the media would park in the spaces that were allocated for parents to pick up and drop off their kids at this daycare. And I remember going up to one of these reporters and saying, "Did you know that?" And they looked at me like,
Yeah.
Well, our stories more important than that, obviously.
I had to squawk a little bit because I'm down here a lot. It's my favorite place. Like if I just want some time to myself, I'll come down and walk. And I can't tell you how many times we've had just food trucks and stuff park along and block the accessible parking. Even the day of the Fiesta de la Americanas parade. One of my favorite companies in Oklahoma was parked in accessible parking. I sent the mayor a text message or a message like, hey. No. Like, you got to get that. I talked to a police officer. I'm like, they've got to move. And I don't know if Scissortail's letting them park there or if someone's directing them to say they can park, but that's a federal right. You cannot block it.
Yeah. somebody's not watching them when they come and park.
or someone's ignoring it. If I'm noticing it, we had all that patrolling, the police. It's important for families like mine to be able to just, there's so many limited.
Just a second. Hey, Angela, I'm leaving right now. Okay, thanks. Bye.
But if I'm noticing it so much,
Mm-hmm.
the police have to be noticing that, and that's something that we should never overlook. Because for families like mine on busy stuff, so another thing, like if you park over here, there's a parking lot kind of down this way from Social. It takes you to a sidewalk, and then that sidewalk leads to grass for about 4 feet, and then it picks back up on the city sidewalk. I either have to choose to put his wheelchair through a really steep slope or get him out in the middle of the street. How is that missed?
But I can tell you when I had a knee procedure, and I had to, and
A
they
knee
first,
scooter?
huh?
Did you have a knee scooter?
No, I didn't have a knee scooter, but I had to do a wheelchair because I eventually had a knee replacement. But at that time, I just had orthoscopic, but it was more extensive than they expected it to be. So they said, so you're going to be in this brace for 6 weeks. I had trips scheduled. I had trade shows that I was supposed to be at. So I had to go to the airport and get a wheelchair, and and then when I got to the hotel, I got a scooter, and it really shows you what people go
You
through.
get to see all the barriers.
And I was scared because here I was in a place that I'd never been before. Like one of them was San Diego. I didn't know how to get from the hotel to the convention center in this scooter. I was like, and then elevators are scary because you go in and then you have to back them out, and it's scary. And if you've never had to experience that, you really don't know.
Yeah.
When we were talking about these ramps, I said, I've had to be in a wheelchair temporarily, thank God it was just temporary, but I experienced, what it was like to have to get from one place to the other in a short amount of time, and I'm in this building that I'm not familiar with, and
So that's the reason why the accessibility page, every accommodation that the Oklahoma City Convention Center offers to its visitors, even if it's just the smallest, nursing mother's room, wheelchairs, clinic, location wherever all the bathrooms are, if you have any sensory kits available for families, if there's a big event going on here and you have a mother here that's with her child on the spectrum, is there a quiet space designated in this? It's pretty quiet in here, but I could see how it could get really hopping. I've never been here when it's super hopping, the events I've been here. Well, the memorial pickup, they had a lot of people, but
we have events that are using this entire building. So
that's just my alarm to not forget about my kiddos at school.
You dropped your.
Okay. Well, I got to leave here in I'm just right over there, so I've got about 20 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you have a quiet space designated, sensory kits, I always direct people to the Science Museum. They have thought of every possible barrier in the building and any accommodation that they have thought of, and it's there. It's so cool. So my goal is to make Oklahoma City, it's a really accessible city, maybe a top 20 accessible city.
I think that's a wonderful goal.
Yep. Will Rogers World Airport installed its changing table, and before that, we have federal aviation regulations that require service animal relief areas in every airport. And whenever I pointed it out to leadership out there, at the time it was Karen Carney. She's not out there anymore, but I said, how is it that if my son had a service animal, that service animal would have a restroom in this building, but he wouldn't? The only place in that it would be to direct me to the floor or use a real short couch that was in it's kind of similar to what's in here, but maybe a little bit wider for his toileting needs. That's not restroom access. So when we're building new buildings, all that should be thought of and put in our building code, so it's not. So if we had building codes that stated, there has to be, if there's steps, there has to be a ramp. I mean, I don't know, there might already be a building code for that, but that way, whenever they get their permit, I don't know what they do, sign off on a new building, and all that's checked off and thought of.
I think somebody approved it without really understanding how convention centers work. The fact
This
that
is a huge building.
yeah,
I can really appreciate how big it is whenever you're in it, but from just being outside and being right underneath this ledge here, I have caught myself like walking under it several times. Like, this building is huge. Yeah.
it is. It is. It's one of those things that people just don't think about until. And like I said, I think the people that signed off on not having these ramps were
Maybe it's just an honest oversight.
I think it was an oversight, but I also think they weren't thinking about how this building was to be used. I think they were thinking about public buildings in general, where people aren't having to get from one place to another and moving around the building. It's different in an office building where you're going in and you're going basically to one place.
Right.
Whereas here, when you're at a conference or a convention, you're moving all the way around the building.
Over.
You've got exhibits in the exhibit hall. You've got breakout rooms on this level. You've got breakout rooms on that level. Then they have a session in the ballroom or a meal function in the ballroom. So people are moving around this building all day long. And they weren't thinking about that.
I want them to start thinking about it with especially every building that goes up from here forward. We need to start thinking about universal design, really requiring that in all we do.
I agree.
Yep.
I'll walk you down to the second level. I can go see what Angela needs. She's not around her house.
I just left Santa Fe Family Fitness Center, where they're hosting the first wheelchair tennis clinic. Yeah, I took my friend over there, and we're going to go pick up my kids and go get her, but I think everyone's looking to how to be more inclusive and plan for all, remove all barriers. Thank you so much.
Well, I enjoyed meeting you in person.
Yeah, I enjoyed meeting you in person too.